You're listening to Tara Lynn's A Geek Saga podcast. This episode features audio from a previously aired live video webcast. Hello, I am Tara Lynn of Geek Saga Entertainment, and welcome to the sixth and final episode of my 2001 Walt Disney World College Program 20-year reunion series. This episode is about the end of our college program, how it felt to return home, and how participating in the CP changed our lives and our futures. Today, I am joined by Kim once again, and also by our friend Beau. So Kim, just kind of want to remind people where they can find you real quick, and then we'll let Beau introduce himself. And Beau, you can, when it's your turn, you can tell everybody kind of like where you worked and all that stuff, since we haven't had you on before.
Hi again, Kim Wyseshuk. I am on Instagram. Nothing fun there, but it's at Kimba1382. Mostly just sharing memes and reels, and that's about it.
All right, what about you, Beau? Well, while we're having technical difficulties, so I found out today after mine and Kim's like LOLs on past episodes about how we can't drink Jim Beam anymore. I found this in my cupboard. As you can see, there's very little left. I think it was bought actually for Christmas eggnog drinks, which is, mixing this with eggnog, it's eggnog. It takes over everything. So I decided that I would suck it up and drink a bourbon and Coke. I'll be completely honest. I think I'm going to take one sip of this and not be able to do it anymore. I'll also be honest about the fact that this is about 9/10 soda. So there's very little bourbon in this, but just smelling it right before we started this webcast had me like throwing up in my mouth a little bit. So I'm going to try it though. Here goes.
Am I here now?
Oh, yes, you are. Oh, just in time. Oh God. I was filling the time with this bourbon and Coke test. Can Tara still drink bourbon and Coke? Well, particularly Jim Beam and Coke. The answer is gross. No, thank you. I will try to finish a little bit more of this, but every time I do, I'm going to make a really obnoxious face. So that's always fun. But okay, now that we can hear you, Beau, want to tell us a little bit about yourself. If you have social media handles to share, you can, but you don't have to. And just tell us a little bit about where you worked on the college program and all that fun stuff. And then we'll jump into the meat and potatoes of this discussion.
Virtual watcher of social media. I don't really post much anymore. Only things I really post anymore are like family photos and whatnot. When I was on the college program, I worked at Disney Hollywood Studios, but I worked right block merchandise, stroller rentals, and package ship.
Just as I already mentioned, I'm Tara, and you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at A Geek Saga, and on the web at geeksaga.com. So, I guess the first thing is Kim and I kind of delved into this a little bit in the holiday episode that we did back in November about what the end of our college program was like, because you kind of can't talk about the holidays when, our college program ended about a week or two after that and not, talk about the end. But so for me, I know I mentioned previously I was supposed to stay, I think, until January 18th. Then I found out that my semester was starting like that same week. So I ended up getting permission to leave like a week or so earlier. I think it was about 10 days earlier. It might have been a little more. And my friend flew down from Connecticut, and I snuck her into Vista Way to stay with me. We went to the parks, or at least to Magic Kingdom. I'm not sure if we went to other ones. It might have been Magic Kingdom and Epcot with the last of my like guest passes or free passes or whatever. And then we drove all the way back from Florida to Connecticut with stops in Savannah and New Jersey to visit friends. And again, I know I have mentioned this before, but the end of the college program for me was really weird because Kim had left early, and pretty much everybody else that was at Vista with us had left as well. I had a couple friends who lived at Chatham, whose programs extended to about the same time that mine ended, but everybody at Vista was gone. It was a ghost town. It was weird and depressing. And I was, really ready to go home for that and some other reasons. But I mean, Kim, you left before or right when everybody else left, right?
So I think I left the first week of January because
Yeah.
I have a picture. I meant to find it, but I have a picture of us with like a little graduation cap. So like we officially graduated. I thought I was in the clear. I had a medical note. I had a bad hip that was really getting bad. And I think after the holidays, I was just so homesick and I had tunnel vision. And I was just kind of like, all right, I've had enough. Like, I want to get home. So I had the same thing. I had a friend that flew down. Sorry.
For those of you listening to this as a podcast, for as long as I am trying to drink this bourbon and Coke, I will be making hideous faces, and I'm sure everybody else is going to be laughing at me.
So I had a friend come down, and I think she stayed. We drove home. And I think we stayed like a night in Virginia or something, and drove home like the next day. So if I remember, it was like the first week of January that I came home. It was just kind of like I hit a wall, hit a breaking point.
So what about Beau? When was your program? Like, when did you end, or when did you go home?
I left the first week of January as well.
Okay.
I think it was like the 4th or 5th or something like that.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
But my parents had come down for Christmas. As soon as my program was done. And then we drove back after that. We ended up having to drive and tow my car because my Jeep broke down a couple of weeks prior to the end of the program.
That's that. I mean, at least on the program, like we had, because I had car trouble at the beginning, but I was lucky. I had friends who were able to bring me to and from work most of the time. But when I didn't, the couple of times I had to take the bus, it was rough. But I guess it's like at least we had that. You know what I mean?
I don't know if you know the story of my Jeep down there, because when I first came down, my Jeep was in repair. But my car at my parents' house, the guy quit the job with my car and a bunch of cars, and they couldn't find it for a couple of weeks.
Oh my gosh.
We ended up finding out that where he stopped in a parking lot and left the cars was just outside of 9/11, and my car was in New York City for 9/11.
Oh my gosh.
When it got down to Vista Way, there was like a gray soot covering like the roof.
Wow. That's crazy.
It was a very interesting thing. I had to go to the car wash and clean the rag top off.
Wow. You might have told us that story like back in the day, but I mean, God, that was 20 years ago, 20 plus years ago now.
20 years ago.
Oh, wow. That's so crazy.
Yeah, they couldn't find it for a couple of weeks. They had no idea where it was. I got it like 2 weeks after 9/11.
So, okay. So you guys both, it sounded like you guys both left the same time. I believe I didn't stay much longer. I think I was out on like the 8th or 9th of January. So yeah, but it was still like it was a rough last like few days being basically on my own at Vista, not totally on my own because I still had friends, you know, at Chatham and everything, but still not the same. I did go to like downtown Orlando once, which I don't know that I'd done prior on a college program, not this college program anyway. Went to that cowboy bar, 8 Seconds, and it was like, this isn't something I had ever done before. Go downtown, so fun. We all got home, and I know that this is something we have all experienced, was you get home and you really couldn't talk about anything else. I actually, when I was coming up with an outline for this episode, I titled this section, "This One Time at Disney," or "This One Time on the College Program," because that's how life was when we got home. It was, it was like life before almost like didn't exist. Right. So do you guys have any fun or funny stories about going home and this being the only thing you could talk about? Like people getting mad at you, whatever.
Not so much getting mad at me, but I was back at school and I was sitting there in my cafeteria. I saw someone do the Disney point. I was like, you do the program? And she was like, yeah, I did it last night. She did a semester before we got there.
Oh, okay.
So she was in the spring 001.
Was that my friend Kim?
It might have been.
You went to back in Necco, right?
No, at Pittsburgh State.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, I think she was at Pittsburgh. Yeah, it might have been my friend Kim, if I remember right.
Yeah, I believe it was.
Cute. Yeah. It's a small world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
For
But it was
those
the
that don't know,
start-
yeah. Beau and I grew up in the towns next to each other. So like Methuen and Drake. I'm from Methuen, he's from Drake, and they're like right next to each other. And then to bring an even smaller world, 8 years after the program, I was dating somebody that Beau's sister was friends with, like in the same circle. Actually, my first husband, Beau's sister, was in the same circle of friends.
Literally small.
Right. It's such a small world. Like, it really was small. Like, I'm so close to the Methuen line that, to be that close and meet someone in Florida
Yeah.
that live a block away from you or like 2-3 miles away.
Yeah. What building did you live in?
I was in 14.
Okay. Which was, but it wasn't next to, was it next to 15? The buildings there were weird.
That one was actually.
Oh, it was. Okay.
Yeah. Because we were the pond. We were all the pond people.
Yeah. The pond people. That sounds so like trashy.
It does sound trashy, but
yeah, well, Vista.
it is called Vista Lake for a reason, right?
Yeah. So Kim, what about you? Like when you got home, did you I know I have stories, but when you got home, did you have a lot of that like kind of couldn't shut up about Disney and had a lot of friends just like stop?
Yeah. So like when I went back to my regular job that I left, my friend Kim, who had previously done the program, whenever we were working together, it was just like nonstop. And I think at a point, and I was trying to like get back with an ex-boyfriend, and he was just like, "Can we talk about something else?" Or I'm like, you're just so engrossed in this world for 6 months, and then even like having to adjust, like being 19 and having to adjust to living at your parents again and adjust the rules, like that was a big, that was a big adjustment. And then I was starting school again and decided to take an 8 a.m. anatomy and physiology because I wanted to go into nursing school. Not so good. Yeah. It was rough getting back into the real world.
Yeah, because I went on the college program, I lost my full scholarship to my school. So I actually didn't go back because it was a small private school. It was like way too expensive. And also I hadn't really loved it there anyway. So I like went home immediately planning on transferring in the fall to an out of state school. I had like a whole bunch in mind. I was looking at one of the SUNYs, another school in Jersey, and a couple down south, which I did end up going to school in Virginia, which turned out to be a weird situation. But when I first got back, like you mentioned, moving back in with your parents, and my parents were very kind of strict growing up. And at this point I'm 19, so there's only so much they can do. But I remember coming home and one of the first big sort of stepping stones was them, being like, well, why were you out so late last night? And I just gone out to like Denny's with a friend and we had stayed out till like 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. We first hang out back. We just sat there, like he was drinking coffee. I was, I don't know, eating a bagel or something. We were there talking till like 3 or 4 a.m. And the next day, my parents kind of got after me and I was like, excuse me, but I've been on my own for the past like 5 months. So I'm going to stay out as late as I want. Like I am an adult and yeah, like I'm still going to work. I'm still going to school. It was only part-time, but I was being responsible, but also if I want to stay out till 3 or 4 a.m, whether it's Denny's or hanging out with my friends at their houses or whatever, I'm going to do it. So, but, and I guess like, I definitely, my friends were really tired of the Disney talk. Most of them were really tired of the Disney talk really quickly. I did get lucky in that the friend that I had actually gone to Denny's with that one time, that became a thing with us. We would just go to Denny's like once a week or so. And he totally put up with me talking out my experiences. And yeah, so we would talk for hours and he would, he had stuff obviously that he would discuss too. So it wasn't a one-way conversation, but it was just nice because like, I definitely got into some little tiffs with other close friends of mine who were just like, they finally were just, I can't deal with it anymore. Stop talking about Disney. I really wanted to go back. Like as soon as I found out they were offering a summer program for alumni, I went to the first presentation I could find nearby And I know, I mean, Kim, you didn't go back, but I don't know if that was like a school thing or why did, because I know you talked about in one of our other webcasts, you talked about how you missed it and wanted to go back, but then didn't. And I don't remember why.
I had to have a hip surgery. And
Okay,
so it wasn't going to be, it was either, I was waiting for it. And then this hip surgery was in May and was just kind of had to have a decision, like have the surgery or I'll go back down. I needed to have that surgery.
Yeah.
So I probably would have much rather been in Disney.
I ended up having knee surgery right before my second program.
Oh, yeah.
I was supposed to go down. I blew out my knee. I need to have surgery. Blah, 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 blah. I need to make sure my role is going to be safe for me, the whole 9 yards. So I had one surgery right before I went down, quick surgery.
I think I remember you coming down on the summer program that year, having just had knee surgery too. Because we both did the summer 2002 program, and you were just summer as well, right?
Just summer.
Okay, yeah, and I
did that on a nice summer.
And you didn't have, even though you just had surgery, you didn't have issues with like where you could work or anything like that?
So I was actually, originally I was supposed to be doing characters for the summer.
Oh.
I had to change. Ended up being at Pecos Bills for the summer, where I was sitting down at cash register.
Yeah, that's a big change. My change of location wasn't last minute. I went to the presentation, and I did the interview. Everything went really well. The recruiter said, like, I can't promise you anything, but I have a feeling they'll probably send you back to your previous location because you're already trained and it's soon enough that you won't have to go through like a recertification. And, it takes like a week to train somebody on an attraction. So, the recruiter talked up the fact that I was probably going to end up back at Pirates. And then, I was waiting for for a letter, anything, like just some sort of word that I'd been accepted or not. And I was assuming I had. I knew it had all gone really well. And I finally found out, my thing just kept saying it was pending. And I finally got a hold of somebody, with the college program recruiting, office. And they told me that the letter had been sent to my old college address, and that I had missed the acceptance deadline, and I would like for me to accept the role. And I was like, well, this isn't my fault. And I looked online, like every record Disney had my home address, like my parents' house. The only thing they had ever sent to my old college address was my first acceptance letter. After that, I had immediately changed everything because I actually wasn't living at school anymore. And so I had gone online and I was like in a thread talking about there was a thread about people who were trying to get back in for the summer 2002 program or something like that. So it was definitely a thread about that, but I complained about it in the thread. I said, what the hell? I don't even think I said hell. I think, what the heck? Like, this is so frustrating. Like, I guess it's going to be fixed and they're going to send me a new letter to my actual address. But how did this mistake even happen? They should not have had that address anymore. The new application I filled out had the proper address. All of my actual Disney records have my home address. It's basically just like, how did this happen? This is really idiotic of them. And somebody like sent my post to like the Disney recruiting office. So then I get a call saying, well, now your acceptance status is pending. And I had to apologize to my recruiter. Now that I think about it, I'm more angry about it than I think I ever was back then, because this is some gaslighting bullshit. You fucked up and I have to apologize for being upset about it? Like, I wasn't even that rude about it. I'll never work at Disney again, so I don't give a shit about what I'm saying in these webcasts, by the way. Like, in case that's not clear. Because I mean, I was so mad. I was so mad. At the time, I was, just upset and trying to get it figured out because I really wanted to go back. And I did everything I had to do. I apologized and everything. But now that I'm thinking about it, yeah, that was some true gaslighting bullshit. Like, anyway, so the end all be all was that I did get an acceptance and I did go back. But prior, like, even though I was had previously been told it was likely I would get sent back to ad lib, when I got the acceptance letter, which I had to basically fight for, they put me in quick service food and beverage. And like, part of me is like, was this just like a ha 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 slap on the wrist? You don't get to go back to your fun location that you loved. You get to work in one of the shittier jobs. But it was probably just that I hadn't accepted it soon enough. And you know what I mean? They couldn't, they'd already filled those roles. And so they stuck me where they needed people. But listen, I'm still gonna be mad about this 20 years later. So that's my going back to the college program story. So, but yeah, so you and I both ended up in quick service. And I remember us both just being like, we were supposed to be somewhere better.
I don't got me back to my old location, but Pecosville was good though. It was good to me.
Yeah, honestly, I am gonna do a much shorter 20-year series for the summer 2002 program, because I know I have a couple friends from my 2002 program who are interested in taking part, and like, so I'm gonna do a short series about that. So I don't want to get too much into this, but like I mentioned earlier, before the college program, we were told that it would look great on our resumes and open up new doors and opportunities. And again, I'll get into this more next summer when I do a couple episodes on the summer 2002 program, but ending up in foods actually gave me better opportunities with Disney specifically than attractions ever would have, because I was able to get into a restaurant management internship in 2006. Like, I'd finished my main degree and I had restarted, like I had started going back to school for a small business management thing. And I was just at a weird point in my life. So I was like, I'm applying for this management internship, and I got it. And I mean, I obviously I wouldn't have, and also wouldn't have had the later experiences that I had with Disney, had I not worked in quick service food and beverage, which also was thankfully a lot of like kitchen stuff and less having to deal with really bad hours, bad customers, whatever. So on that note, the question is, so did it actually look great on resumes and open up new doors and opportunities like they touted for either of you?
No, I mostly did retail after the program for a while. So like my first grown-up job, I put it on there. It was working for DYS in Mass. That's Department of Youth Services, so juvenile delinquents. I don't think it did much. I do think when I went to my interview for my current job, I'm a dispatcher now, I think it was helpful, some of the things I could relate to when you had to describe something. And I always go back to just after 9/11 when they redid the fireworks show, and it caught everyone by surprise. And, we were behind the castle and we didn't know what was going on. So I kind of was able to use that to relate to a couple things, just to talk about in an interview. But I don't know if someone was like, oh, I want this person to work for Disney. But lo and behold, there was someone that one of the officers did the program probably about maybe in the 80s. So it was really interesting to find someone that had also done it previously. And, and they're from North Andover. Or he's from like all over the place, but now in North Andover.
And actually, since you said that, about the fireworks over, it also, as a dispatcher, you might have to kind of deal with people who are emotional. Right. So I always, that customer service aspect of Disney, it kind of goes like an extra mile, because when people get upset or pissed off at Disney, they get really upset or pissed off because they've spent a lot of money and they're tired, they're exhausted, they've been at the parks, they're on their feet, they're maybe dealing with children who aren't behaving well, et cetera, et cetera. So I think the experience that you gain as a frontline cast member working with people is just, that's something that you can for sure take away. And not to say that people who work like retail and food service elsewhere don't get similar experiences, but the difference is, it's Disney. So you've got that shiny Disney, gleam on your resume that it does, I think, make that experience stand out a little more. Maybe that's unfortunate, but it does. So
yeah. No one calls me today because they're in the most place in the earth. They're calling me because, they had a bad day. So there is a lot of like having to de-escalate the first people that we talk to. And actually you mentioned retail. Dave just had to tell some guy off the other day because they're short-staffed, and he had a guy give him a hard time, and he was like, basically like, you can wait your turn, and you're not treating my cashier like that just because you're waiting for a TV and he doesn't have all your answers. So yeah, so if, even using that experience like in a retail world or other worlds, it is helpful.
I don't think I got a job because of it. Like, I had a lot more opportunity to get the job I was vying for, because whenever someone got to that point on my resume, they'd be like, "Oh, you worked for Disney," and then it just became a conversation.
Yeah.
And the interview no longer became talking about the job; it became talking about Disney. So I think people were very intrigued by it. I don't know that it like opened up doors. I think in their mind, it opens up doors to other things at Disney. I can definitely see it opening up doors at Disney company.
Oh yeah, I mean, and I have plenty of friends, not just from this program, but from future programs who have, continued with Disney for years and years, sometimes gone into management roles. One of the cast members I had who, when I was a restaurant manager, she's now a sous chef, and I think either about to be or just started a like lead chef job. And that was definitely because she worked, she worked in foods at Disney at one point. She had other experience before and after that, but they wouldn't have hired her out of the blue from outside if she had zero Disney experience, probably.
Right. So that's where I think they put their idea with Disney. Opening other doors, I think, opened up a lot of other doors other than a conversation piece.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that was basically one of the things I had kind of made note of was, mostly it just became a talking point in interviews. But I mean, it did probably get me one job after the fact. Like for sure, it got me. I worked as a travel agent for a short amount of time right after college, which was not a good job. Like I would not call that a good job because it was a low hourly wage plus commission. And this was, oh gosh, I worked at a travel agency. I worked there for like a year between college before my restaurant management internship, and then I worked at one again for a year right like after I left Disney after my restaurant management internship. And it's like this was the period of time probably like before I went on the restaurant management internship. It was still that period of time where people were actually calling travel agents to book trips, not just Disney but other travel as well. But by the time I came back and got back into the travel agency world in like early 2007, I think it was at that point where people would basically just call us to see if we could beat internet prices, So it was not a great job, but for sure Disney probably got me that job more than anything else because I had that knowledge and they were able to tout me as like the Disney expert, but like I said, it did mostly just become a talking point in interviews. Agree with that, Beau. But on that note, like all that said, going on the college program working at Disney, but also being thrown into the Vista Way life and everything, it did make me a much more outgoing person than I was in high school in my first year of college. So it made me a lot more sure of myself when it came to talking to and dealing with other people. And it also gave me a lot of general experience. Like, I mentioned the dealing with customers and stuff that I've used over and over again in my careers. I do think also that the positivity that they insist on has carried over with me. My current job, there's been several times where they mentioned of like, oh, you're always willing to help. You're always upbeat. You're always positive. And I'm like, I am not like this 99 point, like when I'm at home or like when I am a friendly, upbeat, outgoing person, but the reason the reason like a bad day and all that stuff never shows at work is because Disney taught me not to let that happen, but I do think that the experience as a whole for sure helped me with like just being able to handle work stress better than a lot of other people. And maybe some of that came more from my later experiences than from my first college program, because honestly, Pirates wasn't really all that stressful, but overall, good experience. I don't think that nowadays they really push the Disney college program the way they did when we applied for it 21 years ago now. But my God, 21 years. But I don't know. I do think back then they really, and maybe they were right. If somebody was doing the internship at the very end of their college career or right after they graduated, and they were taking that right into the job world, I can see that being something that Disney wasn't wrong about, that it gave them more opportunity. But I know for me and for Kim too, and Beau, I don't know how old you were, where you were in your college career at that time.
Mine was center.
Yeah.
Just finished my sophomore year.
Yeah, so we were all kind of not exactly the same, but kind of in that same realm of like we still had years of college to go through after that, and I think that made that did kind of water down the fact that I'd once upon a time done the Disney college program a bit by the time I graduated and was looking for full-time work, but still, I mean, I do think working at Disney in general for sure used to be a good experience for a lot of reasons. Having gone to Disney a couple times in the past few years, I'm not sure I'd still agree with that, but especially my most recent trip, but
No, outgoing portions of it, because the me you met when I first got down there definitely was not the me that I left Massachusetts from. I had gotten into a spot where like I used to be outgoing when I was younger, kind of like pulled back because my 2 years weren't exactly my favorites because I had moved and kind of I was always small and I was picked on a lot. I kind of formed a shell around me. When I got to Disney, I literally was like, no one here knows me. I'm going to be the me that I want to be. And I haven't stopped doing that. It's one thing that I got from the program.
Yeah, no, my background story wasn't the same. Mine was more, I was always very shy and nerdy with like big glasses and, kind of frumpy clothes. And like when I started like blossoming into a feminine form, I wanted nothing more than to hide that. And, and I grew up in a small town and I never left that small town. Like we never moved or anything. There were 3 elementary schools. All 3 of those elementary schools came together at the middle schools. So the vast majority of the people I went through middle school and high school with, I'd known since 6th grade, and at least a third of them I'd known since kindergarten. So even though I kind of grew up a lot during high school, I was still that nerdy, little person that everybody picked on. And when I went to college, I had that hope of kind of reinventing myself at college, but I went into like a theater program and just ended up being like not outgoing enough. It was so cliquey, and I was not outgoing enough to bust in. And also there was a lot of older students who were pissy because I was getting solos and roles and stuff that like they thought older people should get. So that didn't help things. Like, I'm not trying to like toot my own horn or anything, but that was definitely an issue as well. But a lot of it was they were cliquey and I wasn't there yet enough with myself, comfortable enough yet with myself to kind of fight for a place in their little cliques. And like you said, going to Disney, nobody knew me. And I was just able to be whoever the fuck I wanted to be, which, was generally the person I'd always been. Just, I didn't have to worry about anybody looking at me and saying, well, that's nerdy little Tara, or that's, whatever. Like, so I don't know. What about you, Kim? Like when we met, like I just assumed you were like an outgoing person before, but I guess I've never really asked.
I was, and I'm still probably one of the shyest people around. I have really bad social anxiety, and I think our alcohol field nights probably helped relax a lot of that.
Yeah.
But I am still like, I don't know, just still pretty shy, and I always feel like it takes me a while to get comfortable. But like what I did get from the program is I had that college experience. I had like that living abroad experience as so many people did, because even when I was living in Boston, I destroyed my knee 2 weeks into the semester, and I couldn't enjoy that college life. Like all I was doing was either going over to Wentworth to go see other boys because I was at an all-girls school. So it really, I was fighting with roommates or fighting with friends at that. So that first semester kind of ruined it for me. And then I think, 2001. So yeah, if I graduated in 2000, so I started in manual, and then I went to NECO and then finished there. And then I think it kind of brought a little bit out of me, like a good personality, but I was still always shy, but it brought me out of my shell a little bit, turned me into a party girl.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah. But no,
I mean, I'd definitely done some partying like the spring and summer before I went on the college program, but the college program is an entirely different level of partying than I'd ever experienced before.
What level would that be?
I mean, since then, I have experienced that level or even crazier levels of partying, but always for short periods of time at conventions. My own convention, Ice and FireCon, Dragon Con in Atlanta, a little bit at San Diego Comic-Con, but that's not really. San Diego is very industry, and it's mostly just going out to bars with your friends, or like if you're lucky to get into an industry party or two, cool, but whatever. But yeah, I mean, that extended, even though I did go away to college starting the fall of 2002, and I finished school, away from home, and I was in a sorority and certainly had my share of partying there. When it comes to the length of time and the amount of partying, the college program it's a different animal entirely, or it was back then. I know that even the next summer when we went back, summer 2002, it was not the same because they changed all the rules because of us.
We destroyed that place.
Like, sorry, all people who did the college program after fall 2001, because it was us. Like, we were the reason they made everybody under 21 go to wellness apartments. I know that there was still Vista.
Right after us. It was changed right after us. Like that came in the week we left.
Yeah.
They had the new rules.
Yeah. They were. Yeah. And I we talked about this in previous episodes, but I think a lot of it was that after September 11th, the people, like all of us who stayed, it was like the college program had always had a party atmosphere and a party reputation, but we took it to like next levels because we'd been through this crazy, like just, life and world altering situation together. And we were all just trying to get through all of that together. And that led to a lot. And also, let's be real, there were always those pockets of people. And in our case, it was mostly the building 15 people at Vista. And I think there were certainly other buildings that had like their party atmosphere, party people, whatever. But I don't remember ever hearing anything about another building that was as over the top as building 15 was, like where you could count on them having a party every Sunday night, no matter what. And then it was always going to be huge, no matter what. So, oh gosh, building 15, good times.
My birthday that I celebrated down there on October 7th was my biggest party that I've ever had for my birthday.
I remember that birthday.
That was a good party, wasn't it?
I guess one thing I also wanted to talk about, and this is kind of getting away from the party discussion a little bit, but we've in previous webcasts, we've reiterated over and over again, like we didn't have cell phones. Like you might have had a cell phone, but you didn't have text messaging. There's no text messaging, I don't believe, at that point.
I think you did, but it was a numeric keypad text messaging.
Yeah, it was expensive, and like I mean, they charge, the cell phones, they charged for like per minute, and maybe it was free after 9 for I don't even know if that.
Yeah, there was a lot of those rules.
Yeah, it was so we had landlines that we had to use most of the time, and there was like AIM, but there was no social media beyond AIM. So I was I have this notebook somewhere, God knows where, but it is packed away somewhere. I have a notebook that, you know, everybody I could find before the last couple weeks of the college program, I had them write their information in it, you know, like actual physical addresses, phone numbers, email addresses, you know, whatever. And I know that like after I got home, the big thing was, and I did it twice at least, but I wasn't the only person because I received several as well. People would do these like mass emails to their friend groups from the college program where it was like, oh, I miss you guys so much. Like, remember all these cool things we did. And like, oh, that's so sad being at home and everything. And like, just, it was like a Facebook post, right? But you sent it to everybody directly via email. So I definitely remember a lot of like back and forth via, you know, email or whatever. But, and also just AIM and putting up your AIM away messages about how much you miss the college program. And like in your little AIM bio, you had like when you did the college program. But there's so many people who, and even people who like I emailed with or like had AIM conversations with right after the college program. I don't have access to the email address I had because I had an AOL email address back then. And I haven't had access to that in 15 years, probably. I deleted that like 15 years ago. So it's like, it was so easy to lose touch with people. You know, you send out an email or you see them on AIM and you leave them a quick message or whatever, but like eventually people aren't responding to you anymore because they've got their own lives. And or vice versa, you know, somebody messages you and you kind of, you miss it because you're not there, or you forget to respond to an email. And it's like the number of people that I have lost touch with that I maybe wasn't close friends with, but it's like, I remember like, there were some people that I liked a lot, you know, I would have liked to have remained friends with them, but they've just kind of like fallen off the face of the earth.
Yeah. So, but yeah, no, there was I definitely remember a couple emails you did the mass email.
Oh, I mean, I received several from other people too. It was always girls that were doing it. You know what I mean? It was always, you know, I think maybe once or twice I would get an email from like a guy that I'd partied with a bunch or whatever. And it was like, oh, like, miss you guys, miss the Building 15 parties, blah, blah, blah. Drinking a bourbon and Coke right now, or whatever the fuck drinking a Beast Light right now.
I definitely remember getting some of those. They were somewhat frequent right at the start and then
petered off. Yeah. And I mean, there were a bunch of fall 2001 people on our summer 2002 program. And that really helped a lot with continuing, like being in touch with people for longer. But none of the people that I, you know, other than you, Beau, and one other guy we were friends with, Nate, none of the people from the fall 2001 college program that I ended up kind of becoming better friends with the summer 2002 were people I had been close with or even known in fall 2001. So there was one person who I became really close friends with for a long time who I had known just by sight because he worked at Thunder Mountain. So like we used the same tunnels at the end of the day. And I remember like having, you know, just brief, like, hey, conversations in 2001. But yeah, you know, none of the thing was a lot of the people who we partied with a ton and stuff, like the guys from Building 15 and everything they were all at the end of their college. Like they had either just graduated or one semester left. And so they
were legal age guys out.
Yeah. So they didn't go back, and you know, they kind of then they went back to school, or they were already finished and they went on with their lives. And it was like, you know,
right.
You never hear from them again.
There wasn't many of the ones that I hung out with, you know, too either. I think it was only you and Nate that I really knew from 01.
Yeah. So okay. Here's a question. Let's start with Kim because Kim hasn't said anything in a bit because you didn't go back at all. But so, is there a person or people who you've lost touch with that you just have fond memories of and kind of like, oh, I wish I'd stayed in touch with that person somehow?
There's a few. There was one of the girls I work with. I think her name was Lori. She was from Texas. Like I always like find myself like thinking about her and everything, but again, like I haven't reached out. There are a few people like I still like see like on social media that I still talk to now and then. And there's that kid Scott. Like I always wonder, like, whatever happened to him? you know. And a few of the people I'm trying to remember, like, other than that, not too much. Like, just a few of the people I worked with, and obviously, like, most of the people from Building 15, like, I either still follow on social media or could, you're ixnayed forever.
Yeah.
But like Erin, that girl Erin, that we hung out with in 15, and I feel like I look back at the pictures, I'm like, oh my god, I wonder where, what they're up to, and not like now and stuff like that.
But when I back and look at pictures, I go, oh, whatever happened to this person, or whatever happened to that person, or whatever, that's when you go back and you say, hey, what happened to this person? What happened to that person? Or you see a photo or a post on Facebook over her.
Yeah, going through the old photos, it's like, wow, there's a lot of people in here. It's like, I remember this person now. I wonder what happened to them. So Becky, we were talking about if there's anybody from the fall 2001 college program that you lost touch with that you wish you could get in touch with again.
I don't know if anybody saw my picture, but there was a girl named Carrie that worked at what's that place called? Sunset.
Mm-hmm.
That she looked just like me.
Oh yeah. I did
Exactly
see you
like
share
me.
that picture.
That's the only person. Nobody else.
Yeah, I mean, like I said a bit ago, like I kept in touch with a lot of people. Obviously Kim and I are still in touch, Beau and I are still in touch, Becky and I are still in touch. Brian, who is on the first couple episodes, him and I have remained friends. Nikki, my friend Nikki, who was on the Halloween episode, and also my friend Jamie, who is how Nikki and I met. Like I went to her wedding a few years ago. She's come to visit me in South Carolina. I've gone to visit her in Boston. So like for me, it was I've said this on previous ones. Fino, our neighbor, mine and Kim's neighbor, Fino, who I got like really close with, and like we were just buds. And he had to leave the college program very suddenly. He got, I think, fired. So he's probably the one person. If you were to ask me one person you wish you could like get in touch with again, it would be him. But I mean, there's also there's some guy that I knew from Building 15 parties. I want to say his name was Dave. And like him and I, like maybe he stayed later than everybody else from 15, like from that, friend group, or I don't know. Like we like talked a lot at the end of the college program and right after. And I don't remember anything else about him. I just remember that we got kind of close, like at the very end or right after the college program. We talked a lot on AIM and stuff. Don't remember anything else about him. So I'm never going to find this person. That's fine. But it was like, I wonder what happened to that guy. Cause we just kind of like fell off talking to each other. And then there was a guy, Brett, that we were friends with, like we were good friends with at the beginning of the program. And then he kind of like went and started doing his own thing. And like, we didn't hardly see him the last like month or two. And I don't know what happened to him. I think we met him when we were in line or like the first day or something like that. Cause he was one of the first people we hung out with. But other than that, I kind of stayed in touch with a lot of people. Okay. And I think this time I'm going to go to Becky first, and then we'll go to Beau and then Kim. What is your best, or not? It doesn't even have to be one, but best like 1 to 3 college program, like memories, things you like look back on and just are like, this puts a good feeling in my heart.
Let's see. I'm trying to think.
I know I'm putting you on the spot by making you go first.
I had the worst job. So
I know.
Well, I did like working at the golf course during that 9/11 area because I was able to work there, and it was much different than housekeeping. I guess I liked on Christmas Day going around to all the rooms and we put little bags with candy on all the room doors. So that was 3,112 rooms. And I don't know, like I did meet some friends. Like I had the guy he like works at a Corvette plant now, but he's from a county right next to me. Didn't even know he was on the college program, and he rode the same bus I did all the time, but we never saw each other. So I'm meeting people I'd still talk to down here, or up here, down here, I don't know. I don't know where I am anymore.
Okay, so Beau, what about you? Top like 1 to 3 memories.
So I'd have to say, I know it was a hard time for the country, but I really liked hearing the stories from the guests, what Disney did for them when they were stuck. from Europe were stuck because there were no planes, and
Mhm.
Disney was washing their clothes, covering some of their costs, like refunding the whole trip, like giving them their tickets price back. Like they were doing so much stuff for these guests that like they didn't have to do. So like that has always been my number one for the company for the company.
Mhm.
For me, it's pretty much, I really enjoyed being the guy to go out into the park. The electric wheels around because I was the one who was bringing them in one, and their reaction of them getting their new one was always great because they were able to continue their day. So it was just small things like that. But other than that, I think those are my ones.
All right. What about you, Kim?
So many.
I know.
I
It's
think
hard.
the whole experience as one, like just going out of my comfort zone, leaving my house, like leaving home for the first time and going away for 5 months and doing this whole thing. And then the parties, New Year's Eve. I mean, you couldn't top that night for me. I don't know why I always come back to that night. Whenever I hear a countdown, I'm like, oh, 10, 9, 8. Oh, it's almost midnight.
I think you sent me that on New Year's Eve this year.
I did. And then just like being able to go, like the perk of going to the parks on your days off and like getting in for free. And, I don't know if I fully appreciated that at the time, just being like, oh, we're bored. Let's go ride Rock and Coaster. Let's go ride Tower of Terror. So I don't know if I fully appreciated that at the time, but it was definitely that. And just like the friendships you've made, like you especially we talk about 9/11, but it really brought us all so much closer. And I think those are probably like the top things that I got from it. It was just the experience as a whole is like not something you'll never forget.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, I would say my top one. I don't know. I don't know if I call this my top one, but like definitely one of the top three is, and I believe I talked about this in a previous webcast, but there was a little girl named Tara, and her family were annual pass holders. They were from somewhere in Florida, and her favorite ride was Pirates. And she was so excited to find out that there was a Tara working at Pirates. One of my first week or two, maybe it was definitely within the first month, but I think it was the first week or two of me working there. I was working greeter, and I don't know how it happened, but like someone in her family, or maybe she noticed that my name tag said Tara, and it became a thing. And I saw her several times throughout the college program, again, because annual pass holders. And, she was just always excited to see me. There were times when I would come into work like the next day and somebody would be like, oh, Tara and her family were here and they were asking for you. And so that was like really cute. She was a little 7 or 8 year old girl. And she was just so excited that someone who was also named Tara worked at her favorite ride. And Tara is not a super like popular name either. So, it was really cute. Also, there was something I mentioned. Oh, Thanksgiving Day was really good. I had a really good Thanksgiving Day. I got really, 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 really lucky. I know that not everybody had great experiences on the holidays at Disney, working at Disney over the holidays, especially being on the college program, especially that year because of like everything that happened with 9/11. It was so much harder to travel. But I had a really good Thanksgiving Day, just having the potluck in the manager's office, not being on the computer and being constantly bumped to breaks, like we were overstaffed, et cetera, et cetera. So those are probably my top two. And weird that they're both work memories, I think, a little bit. Cause like, I mean, I liked my job at Pirates, but it's surprising to me now that I'm thinking about it, that my top two memories are work memories. But yeah, I mean, really just, the experience as a whole, and just finally being away from home from somebody who I'd gone to school, like gone away to school. Like I lived at school my first semester, my freshman year, but I hated it. And it was a small school. And I ended up moving back home the next semester because I was like, I don't want to do this. And it was also only 25 minutes from where I grew up. So I was home like every weekend because there was nothing going on campus. So, as stupid as it may sound, and as much as like the party lifestyle on the program and at Vista, didn't do great things like to my weight and my health. And I had some crappy memories from that as well. You know, there was also some really stupidly crazy fun memories, you know, the Kim mentioned the New Year's countdown thing, and I was sick that night, so I didn't really get to experience that. But so many previous Sunday night parties at Building 15 before then, and just, you know, these people that you weren't really close with them. You didn't see them outside the Sunday night parties, but you showed up and it's like fucking cheers, man. Everybody knew your name. And whether it was actually your name or they just knew you like as Kim and I as the institution. So yeah, I've been a little bit lucky in that, like, going to conventions, I have kind of gotten that sort of like feeling back, especially because I run a convention, you know, but still there's nothing like that, especially since it was my first real experience being part of a group like that, you know, where you might not see each other or think about each other all week, but then you all show up to that Sunday night party and yay, so-and-so's here. Woo! We're all a bunch of woo girls, even the dudes.
But no, it was, I will say that, like, you know, the time with my, I didn't have it with Reed, but after thinking about it, my roommates, like, they were, like, you know, that was a really good time with them.
I don't remember any of your roommates, so I think if you said their names, I would probably remember some of them, though, because I know I met them.
You definitely met them. Joseph, Tim, Martin, Chad, and Brian.
Okay, I think I remember Tim.
Brian and I dated for like a couple weeks, like right around my birthday. The one that went to PI, dated.
As much as you can date on the college program. All right. Well, on that note, I mean, that was kind of all I had to talk about in this episode. But do any of you have any last thoughts? Because this is the last episode of the 2001 20-year reunion series. So this is your last moments, last thoughts. What do you have to say? Anything you want, say it. You have the floor, whoever wants to take it. Everybody's like, I feel like everybody has this I want to say something look on their face.
16 years. I stayed for 16 years. Does that make any difference?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like Beau and I were talking earlier about how we went back, and I went back actually. Like, I went back several times. I went back as a seasonal cast member.
Yeah, I did seasonal and 4-time college program and 1 management internship. So I couldn't get enough of the college program, apparently.
I'm just temporarily working for their movie company at the moment, so in movie department. So a way I go back.
After I went to school and then lived like in an apartment on my own, because I went back to school and only lived on campus for 2 semesters, like fall and spring, so like a year. And then the next year after that, I lived off campus. And like as soon as I lived in my own apartment, not having to have like roommates, like rando roommates and stuff, it was like, oh yeah, so I don't want to go back on my college program really. But you know, I did go back, you know, and I actually lived at Vista once for like a month. One of the summers, I think it was summer 2004, between, you know, I think it was between I graduated December 2004. So it was like right before my last semester of college. But yeah, like going back seasonally and everything was always a blast, whether I was living at Vista that one time or elsewhere, like staying with friends off property or whatever. So I went back quite a bit. I eventually got my fill of Disney only because when I worked as a restaurant manager, as much as I loved that job, my sister was pregnant with her first child. Like, she got pregnant with her first child while I was on the restaurant management internship. So I ended up, like, as soon as that was over, I was kind of like, I extended it for a few months. And then I said, you know, they wanted me to stay. And I was like, I'm looking at my sister's having a baby in a couple months. And if I stay here, I'm going to miss I'm going to miss her being born. I'm going to miss Christmas, her first Christmas, you know, every Christmas after that. So I wasn't ready, or not even ready. I wasn't willing to, you know, give that up. So I applaud all the people who stayed for so long afterward, you know.
I think it was we all had a great time, and I think the toughest part was coming back to reality. And that's why I think we are going back. Like, I went back to that college program, and I also would go and work. I'd go and work for a week just so that I can, like, get experience and then, get in the parks for free for a week until they changed their plans. Because they used to allow you to go only 1 week a year, and then they changed it to 2 weeks a year. And they had to be 6 months. It was not a year, it was in a 6-month time period. So that is when I wasn't able to do that anymore.
Yeah,
and that's
yeah.
when I stopped going back.
Yeah, and for a while they had like you could be a college, like a campus representative, and you would get like an actual like pass.
I actually brought my son, my older son, this year, back in June. So
Oh, nice.
it was fun actually taking a toddler into the park.
I brought my 1-year-old niece one time, and then my whole family went when my nieces and nephews were pretty young. It was all right. It was fine. I would not do it again. I am excited to eventually, hopefully, bring my stepkids. Like, they've been to Disneyland, but I'm not. I don't think I'm not going to bring them. I'm not going to pay all that money to go to Disney with them until things are a little bit more settled than they are right now. I'll put it that way.
We decided to bring Leo down, my oldest son. Loaded the 2-year-old into a car, drove down the coast with a pregnant wife.
You drove? Gosh, no, thank you.
Oh yeah, we drove it.
Let's see. Yeah, Massachusetts to Florida is not a drive. I mean, I don't ever want to do Connecticut, or we'll never do Connecticut to Orlando again. But
I'm at least in Rhode Island now, so
okay.
I knock off.
I knock off like 45 minutes. We've talked about all the things we wanted to talk about, really, but of course, there's still always like 20 more things that you forgot to mention. So,
Yeah, I wish I had gone back and done a summer program, but I mean, I needed the surgery. I didn't want to leave the boyfriend again because like I had just gotten him back and hung up on him, and I'm so grateful for like looking back on all this, and it's reconnected like Tara and I again, and I love it. And
yeah.
Our lives are like so almost parallel, and it's so funny because it was from like the beginning.
Yeah, I know, right?
It really was. And I think that's it. It's just like, and Beau was just talking about taking kids. I've taken my girls down a couple times now. We're in the midst of, I'm trying to convince my husband to go. He's right now a little uncomfortable going. So, and I've gone with like just me and another friend, and we've done an adult trip, and I loved it. And so Dave plays like a lot of softball tournaments down. They call it the Space Coast now. So next time he has one of those there, we're going to rent a house. I'm going to bring the girls over for a couple of days or something. And then I just want to get back at least once or twice, because I know it's just getting so unaffordable. And I just need to get back like another time. And then maybe that'll be good.
Well, maybe you and I need to get together and be like, how can we make this happen at the same time?
Okay, I'm down. We can leave all the families at home.
That was the one thing that my wife and I discussed. We're like, it was great bringing a toddler and liked, being able to, show him some things that I know because I work there. But my wife and I were like, we missed out some of the rides we want to do because he's 2. And we wanted it to be focused on him.
Yeah,
so we want to go down by ourselves now for like a week or something.
All right. Well, in conclusion, I found an email that I sent after the college program. I am not reading this whole last thing because I am not going to do that. But I wanted to close this series out with this because it's weirdly poignant for a 19-year-old to have written. Obviously I'd gone home from the college program. It was like late one night. I couldn't sleep. I have really bad insomnia. So this is like persisted throughout most of my life. But it was late one night, couldn't sleep, started to reminisce. And I went into this like, just sort of, I think what I said was like, at some point I fell in love at the most inopportune time that one can fall in love. I don't know what I fell in love with. My awesome roommate, the guy that agreed with me about not sharing our life stories, the neighbor who slept in my bed just because he could, the guy I had everything from wild nights to deep talks with, and who was there for me when my family fell apart and I was 1,300 miles away and couldn't be there for them. The little girl I met who had the same name as me and loved the ride that I worked at. My coworkers, my friends, and everything in between. To put it in terms of my life, like looking back now, I've had a lot of really great times, but no matter what, the college program will always be this just magical, difficult, life-changing, great, awful at times, but overall really just it's an experience that built me, and probably the experience that built me. Because without it, I would not be, the person I am today. It taught me too much. So on that note, before I get even more emotional than I'm getting right now, thank you guys again. Becky, thank you for jumping in last minute. Beau, thank you for jumping in on our last episode. Kim, thank you for joining me on so many of these. And to everyone who has tuned in for this reunion series, either live or after the fact, on YouTube or as a podcast episode, thank you guys for listening. I hope you've enjoyed it. Again, you can follow me across the web at Geek Saga for updates on when you can catch future webcast and podcast episodes, including a shortened, 3-episode 2002 college program reunion series, which will probably be kicking off in May. So have a lovely night. Thank you everyone again for joining, listening, etc. Goodbye.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for listening to the Geek Saga podcast. If you like what you heard, please check out other Geek Saga entertainment endeavors, including the Sagas and Sass webcast and podcast and Ice and Fire Con.